Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. If you've spent any time at all on Facebook, you've seen those images of a European town and what it looks like in the middle of World War II. And alongside that image is a shot of what that same location looks like today. The contrast is remarkable and, in most cases, uplifting. Our guest today, Bo Grebitus, has gone a step further in his latest in a series of books called Touching History. And this one is Touching History, touring Lake Tahoe. Bo, welcome. Great to have you
Thank
here.
you very much, Paul. Appreciate being here.
Sure. Now, the word history might not sit all that well with some students who think of history as being boring, but your books take a whole different approach and an entertaining approach. Tell us about how the books are structured.
Well, I was concerned, as you probably are, that history is not being taught at times, and I wanted to draw people into it. And I had a fascination with some of the great old historic photographs. And I started collecting them, but realized a lot of cases I didn't realize actually where they were taken.
Hmm.
So that started me down one path. I found the site and I started standing right where the photographer stood, and I took a new photograph. But then I realized something else that to draw people into it, why not take the original subject and put that subject into my modern photograph? And that way people could see maybe a building that hasn't been around for 100 years is suddenly put back into the picture in our modern day. So if you're walking down a pathway and suddenly you look up and there's a great old hotel that hasn't been around for a century is standing before you. And that's the idea that I wanted to bring to people who studied history. And in creating a tour of Tahoe City, historic Tahoe City, that's what I set up.
That's a great idea. There's a place here. I live in Duluth, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, and there's an old little motel that was on what used to be the main drag to Atlanta. It was called the Dutch Mill, and it was torn down, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 years ago, but I remember it, and it was just a crummy little place. But now I wish it were still there just so I could see, or like to go back and see pictures of what it looked like. I'd love that's a great concept. What was the process of doing that? I mean, how much work did it take to go out, tote out a camera, and find out the locations you wanted to be at? And were you familiar with those locations already?
Great question. In this particular case, I was inspired by the Bliss family saga, and they were pioneers from Nevada and California, and they were a logging family. And what they were finding out was, oops, the logging industry was fading out. There was no more trees around Lake Tahoe. So at the turn of the century, they had to adjust from being a logging group into tourism. And
Oh,
that was the saga that I started to follow. So, in a lot of the great images that I was looking at, I had to go out and find where they were and hike into the forest in many cases to try to find the exact location, try to find the spot where suddenly there were no trees. So, they had these beautiful vista photographs. But now there's all these trees that have grown up again, and that vista is gone. So it was really a struggle to try to find the exact locations and try to get the same view to create this book idea.
now when you took the pictures yourself, right?
Yes.
Was this a Photoshop project, or how did you physically put it together?
Oh boy. My arch enemy is the computer. So in putting that together, it was trying to cut out the image from the old vintage photograph and insert that into my modern photograph. And that was a problem for me. And I managed to find some softwares that helped me do that.
Mhm.
And I wanted to make sure that I left the subject matter in black and white and then put that into my color photograph so you could really see the difference, but still get the idea of what was there.
Well, that's a great idea. Now, from what I understand, somebody who has this book can kind of take a walking or riding or biking tour of the Lake Tahoe area
Well,
and
that's
kind of move
exactly what I
inside.
was trying to achieve. Exactly. If you can take that book and walk through, in this particular case, it was Tahoe City, which was a sleepy little pioneer town up at 6,000 foot elevation.
Mhm.
And the the idea of when the Bliss family decided to go into tourism, they built a giant hotel in Tahoe City. They brought their logging railroad and floated it across Tahoe City
Hmm.
and created a point where they joined from the Transcontinental Railroad in Truckee, California, and brought people up to Tahoe City. And also, they created a beautiful 160-foot steamer that went all the way around Lake Tahoe because at that time, Tahoe had no roads. So
Hmm.
they put all of these things together right in sleepy little Tahoe City, and it became the hub of transportation and tourism right up in Lake Tahoe.
Hmm.
And so that was the idea. And to be able to take a tour on that waterfront and see what used to be, it's a fascinating little story because all of those buildings, all the piers, the steamers, even the Grand Hotel, they're all gone. But
Hmm.
as you look at this book and you hold it up and you say, on that point was the hotel, and here's the photograph showing the original spot, and now the modern thing with nothing there. And then my third, what we call the history meld image. Now you can see exactly where that hotel was, where the giant 1,000-foot long pier was, where the steamers used to dock,
Hmm.
where some of the fishing villages were, and where the railroad used to go right along Tahoe City. And so it's all right in front of you, and you can just walk right down the beach and see each little point and
Hmm.
see what used to be there. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Now, what's been the reaction of the locals?
Well, here's the fun part is I volunteer up at the Gatekeepers Museum in Tahoe City, and it's a very prideful community. They love their history. So in creating this and reviving interest in that Tahoe City, people love it. They take the book in hand, and I've done a lot of tours myself, walked people down the beach and with book in hand and taught them the history in conjunction with the museum.
Hmm.
So
Now,
very well received.
now you grew up in the Lake Tahoe area, if I'm not mistaken.
I grew up actually in Sacramento, but you're right. I spent all my summers in Lake Tahoe since I was knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
And talking to some of the old people that really they were in touch with the original pioneers. So I got a lot of the original stories. And that's what really got me going was understanding the history of Tahoe.
Well, so understandably, having had that much experience in the Lake Tahoe area, this area is especially dear to your heart. Can someone from another part of the country, I'm out in Georgia, what I would probably enjoy because I like history, but would somebody who's not from Lake Tahoe appreciate this as much as the locals would?
Great question. Lake Tahoe, number one, is it's a great tourist spot right now. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful place to visit. But if you walk along these waterfronts and that history is gone, I think that there's just a little something missing. And all of a sudden, when you get the little bit of spice here, where suddenly you find out what used to be there, I think it becomes that much more enjoyable. And you can go right from the waterfront tour to, oops, right up on top of the ridge there to some neat restaurants. There's great hotels in Tahoe City. So it just adds to your visit in the Tahoe region. It's an incredible place to visit.
Yeah, my wife always makes fun of me because I always think that everything should just be exactly the way I remembered it. If I go back to a place that I haven't been to in 50 years, why isn't that restaurant still there? Or why isn't that, why aren't those people still living in that house and that kind of thing? And this book sort of gives you that opportunity to see what it was like. I think that's fascinating.
And Paul, I've added to this. This was the first book, Touching History, was just on Tahoe City.
Yeah.
But I've taken the entire basin because as a cyclist, I've ridden around Lake Tahoe 15 times.
Hmm.
It's an amazing ride, but there's so much history all the way around the lake that my second book, Touching History 2, very original title,
Oh, very nice.
um, takes on the history all the way around the lake. And I've taken the same process of a tour, this being a bike or a car tour that you can enjoy.
Now, maybe you've already answered this, but what kind of inspired you to do this in the first place? I mean, were you always interested in history as a kid?
Very much so. You couldn't help but run into history when you were a kid up in Lake Tahoe,
Mhm.
running into some of the old timers. You heard the stories all the time if you sat around the grocery store, which is where I worked as a kid. And like I said, the Bliss family saga was a great American saga of hard work, logging industry, tough industry, suddenly saying, oh, what do we do now because the logging industry is failing? And the family picks itself up and goes into tourism and how they developed a town. And like I said, floating the railroad all the way across on barges, all the way across the lake, building up their idea of tourism. It was just a great story, and I just had to follow it.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges you had to face in trying to get this done? I mean, there must have been some times when you would go to take a picture or take a photo and there were some challenges that got in the way. What kind of challenges did you face?
Probably the biggest one was private property these days.
Oh, I bet.
Things are developed, but finding the location, it took a tremendous amount of research, climbing over boulders, go in between trees, up in the mountains. It's amazing where some of these places used to be that no longer are, and I had to go find them. And that
Mhm.
was a huge challenge for me. But I got a lot of hiking exercise out of it, I'll tell you. And sometimes I would show up to a point and the weather didn't cooperate. Suddenly we're in a rain squall. It wasn't a place to be able to take a picture at that moment.
Mhm.
So there was a number of different challenges to actually find that location and get the right lighting, things of that sort, to really make the photographs stand out or to make the comparatives really understandable.
Did you ever take a picture, get it back into your work area and go, oh, nuts, that didn't work out. Have to go back again?
You were reading my mind, weren't you? I was thinking of that. That happened a number of times where you thought you had the shot down, you get back, you look at the photograph, and you realize the mountain in the background that you thought was the point that you wanted, wrong mountain.
Oh
Up,
no.
out, back I went.
Oh
So yeah, I
no.
learned a couple lessons about topography and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So
That reminds me of the time when my wife and I went to Canada on our honeymoon back in 1981. And 20 years later, we went back. And as we were driving on our way up to Banff, we found a place, the very same spot I had taken a picture of her 20 years earlier, same mountain in the back, same dent on the guardrail. You would have
perfect,
loved that. You would have loved it.
perfect.
Um, Now, what other projects do you have in the works? Have you ever thought about doing this for other parts of the country or other parts of California?
It's more difficult for me because I'm not as capable of knowing that particular history in other parts of the country. Really, this has been a lifetime for me of knowing Lake Tahoe history. So I think that I have one other book coming out, which is a third book about the region around Lake Tahoe. It's called Truckee, California, and so it's part of the saga. So my third book, Touching History 3, will discuss portions of that history, but I have other history projects in mind. One of them about the USS Arizona and some other projects that are coming up. So I still have plenty of work to do.
Well, that means a trip to Hawaii for you then.
I've been there many times and studied the site, and I have a lot of research material still to go over. So,
Mhm. Well, the book is called Touching History Touring Lake Tahoe. It's available on Amazon. Is it available other places as well?
and in local bookstores around me, but I'm going to try to get it out a little bit more with your help too. And this is the Touching History 2, which is about the Lake Tahoe Basin. This one is now out also on Amazon. So people can look at this one. And this, as I said, covers the entire Tahoe Basin. So it's a little backup to the Touching History original.
Now that's a great example. That picture, show that picture again on the cover. That's a great example of what you've got inside the book. In case people couldn't quite grasp what you were talking about, explain what's going on in that picture and how
What
you.
I've done is I've taken the original photograph of
Mhm.
a pioneer couple on the railroad pier. This is a pier out over the waters of Tahoe where a train engine used to go out to meet the steamer. And what I've done is I've taken a picture of myself. I'm in color. The rest of it is in black and white.
Mhm.
So it gives people a little bit of a laugh about what I'm doing here, but it gives you the idea of what the history meld images do is combining modern with the old fashioned vintage photographs.
And where do you get the old vintage photographs? I mean, there must be rights issues and that kind of thing, or the right angle. I mean, you have to get back and get the same angle they got. And,
There's many published photographs that are available, and you just have to research them. There's university libraries, there's research books. There's some just fantastic photographers that it's amazing. Their images, you think of old cameras, they don't work maybe very well. It's amazing how detailed and how in focus these great
Mm.
photographs are. They're beautiful, and there's so much detail behind them. You can learn so much with each image. It's fantastic.
Well, you're obviously passionate about it. Is this your full-time gig?
No, I still work. I retired from the retail industry and I looked around and determined I can't hit a golf ball straight.
Hey, welcome to the
So
club.
the hopeless, helpless workaholic that I am, I went back into the industry. I work with real estate people, and I do building inspections for them for buyers and sellers.
Oh, very good. All right. Well, again, the book is called Touching History, Touring Lake Tahoe, one of two books with a third one on the way, right?
You bet.
All right. Well, Bo, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure talking with you, and I can't wait to get out there and get a copy of that book and take a tour of Lake Tahoe. Maybe I'll see where Fredo went into the water. Well, now maybe that's.
I'll show you where.
Oh, perfect. All right. Thanks, Bo. And thank you,
Thanks for
folks.
having me.
Oh, you bet. Thank you, folks, for joining us and spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.